South Africa is one of the world's largest gold producers, and illegal mining has been a long-standing issue in disused mines. An already struggling mining industry loses 6 billion rand every year in the form of revenue and to this unregulated industry. The cost of rehabilitation of all the abandoned mines has been pegged at 40 billion rand. Thousands of people, including migrants, see abandoned mines as their last hope and risk their lives. These operations are occurring on an industrial scale, but without the specialized mining equipment, leading to frequent accidents and casualties. And joining me in studio is ANN7 business editor Clive Ramatibela-Smith. And on the line we have Saniki Mahaseng, a geologist. Clive, thanks so much for joining us today. Can you just quantify the economy, particularly the gold mining sector, in relation to illegal mining?
I think what's important is to start about the economic effects, like you're saying, the implications of losing 6 billion rand, which is unlisted. So we actually don't have a tracking process to see how this money is actually impacting on the economy. Obviously, what it does mean is that if mines are shutting down, if mines are relieving people from work and cutting down on jobs, it means that it has to do with that 6 billion rand, which is somewhere hanging. We don't know where it's in the, so it's very hard to therefore say, where do we allocate this particular 6 billion rand? But the effects of it is that the impact on the jobs numbers, the impact on the GDP number, it means that it's unregistered, illicit money that just disappears out of our economy without us doing any track.
Yeah, but one could argue and say, look, it's a double blow for the poor because of the socio-economic issues that you were talking about, the jobless GDP, or rather growth that we've been seeing, that these are desperate measures that require desperate means. Yes. So how then is it possible to mitigate these kind of impacts and also create an environment where people can get employment?
I think the one important aspect that you just mentioned there is how do we make sure that we create jobs? I think that's the most important thing. It's one of the 3 pillars that government is trying to fight. And so when you have people who are currently, according to the report by National Treasury, about 70% of these people are illegal migrants. So it means that there's no way of actually tracking how much work has been beneficial into the long-term stream of the economy. Second thing that is quite maybe baffling to many people is the fact that somebody is buying this gold. We need to find out who. Obviously, this is a syndicate, so it can't be that we're losing 6 billion and it's going to people who don't have money. It must be people who are able to fund these miners, who are able to make them have the kind of equipment that they need to cleanse their gold, to be able to put it back into the market. And so from black market, it comes back, and maybe it's wedding rings and stuff that we
might just be part of the problem. Saniki Mohaseng is a geologist and joins us on the line. Saniki, just give us an indication in terms of processing, as Clive alluded to, that this requires quite specialized equipment and some form of funding to be able to excavate and extract the gold.
Yes, basically they are using an artisanal mining equipment. They are using their hand screens, their shovels, and they are also using their self tools.
All right, but I mean, this is highly risky, as we've reported at Langlaagte, with the number of casualties and with many more going to be reported most likely. So why is it something that is seen as lucrative by illegal miners if it's such high-risk operations? All right, we've lost Saniki there. Charmaine Russell is from the Chamber of Mines as their spokesperson. Charmaine, thanks so much for joining us. The role of the Chamber of Mines when it comes to these illegal operations, is it more against, or are you rather encouraging more law and order, the punishment of the illegal miners, or are there other interventions that you have?
Good evening. I think it's a range of interventions. The very first thing is that we certainly have sympathy for the individuals and their families. Many individuals are driven to illegal mining through sheer desperation. We understand that. From the Chamber's perspective, there are a number of interventions underway. A very big part of this is working very closely with the SAPS and the DMR. And also, as one of your other spokespersons said earlier, is looking at international agencies like the UN, like Interpol, because this really is related to organized crime, organized syndicates. It's not really the illegal miners who are benefiting as much as the crime syndicates.
All right, but I mean, these mines are typically disused, but they belong to a mining house or mining company that have either neglected that asset because it doesn't produce the required outputs, Clive. So where does the liability lie in even enabling this kind of activity to happen?
Well, some of these businesses, remember, licenses are not forever. So some of these mines, it's actually gone back, therefore, to the local municipality that runs that particular area, entered back into their hand as well. So they have jurisdiction to actually take action should they feel that this kind of activity that's endangering people's lives. However, on the mining side of things, the numbers, if you add them up, there's nothing that compels them to go back to those dumps and to do things about it. It's therefore then falls on government's lap to say, what is it that we can do, perhaps maybe to change the way things are happening at the moment, to take back control? There's a few ways that you can do it. You can either legitimize the business, which it's going to take intensive financial capability for you to actually restructure and make sure that people's lives are safe. And then you have to deal with labor and you have to deal with unions because those people who are going to be hired to go back into those mines will have to be regulated. So they don't want to do that. And hence the reason why my sense is that it's probably been left alone deliberately because it's been going on for a long time because someone is benefiting. Now, who's benefiting? And the answer to that is whoever's benefiting is not prepared to take a shortcut or to take the long drive to get to actually making sure that these things are done in a legitimate way because they stand to lose. I mean, if you get it from the black market, it means that you're paying probably half or a quarter of the price that you should be buying it or what you would normally cost you if you were to actually abstract it legally. So will this person take action? The answer to that is I doubt it.
Yeah, Charmaine, but I mean, this is a perennial problem, and I'm surely you might have profiled or, be privy to investigations of these syndicates and where to nip it in the bud. Are we any close to knowing who's benefiting largely?
I think there's lots of investigations into this, and most recently the Chamber is participating in an international survey with the UN subsidiary. But perhaps I could just go back a second in terms of where this illegal mining is taking place. The illegal mining is taking place in mines that have been closed, which were in fact closed properly according to regulation, but which have been blasted open by illegal miners, but also mines that are currently operating. Illegal miners sometimes gain access to those workings or spend several days underground operating in disused areas. So it's a very, very widespread problem and very difficult to control.
All right, Saniki is back on the line. He's a geologist, just explaining the process of it, or Charmaine giving us a picture that it is very difficult to control because you never know when the illegal miners will strike, and they don't only go to disused mines, in fact, operational businesses as well. So, Saniki, you were still telling us about how difficult or cumbersome an exercise it is to finance for the illegal miners to thrive.
Yes, it's actually difficult to finance that. But one thing, if there's a market, there's a way. So there's a way of them attaining the money. So with that little that they have, they manage to go down and do their illegal mining as usual, their business as usual.
Yeah, but Clive, you were saying that the market in itself is available. There is somebody who's procuring these kind of goods, and therefore it's legitimized in that way that it would be difficult to deal with. You know,
this number of 6 billion rand was not sucked up of the thumb. So somebody must have gone into and researched and found out how much they actually, and in actual fact, some of the interviews on the channel shows that people are saying they're earning money. They're talking about 3,000-4,000 rand a day if you get some goods down there. So obviously it's a very lucrative business, but unfortunately it doesn't contribute to our industry, to our GDP, and that becomes a problem. And it's not regulated, and so people's lives are at stake. So the question is, how do we therefore mitigate the risks that are involved? And that's why it becomes then a capital-intensive exercise to regulate it. The question is it actually worth it? You know what I compare it to, Cindy? And you're going to find this very abrupt. But, I mean, we talk about prostitution. And we talk about, do you legalize it or do you leave it as illegal? Whereas it's a growing business in
or
the country.
Or do you decriminalise it?
Or do you decriminalise it, exactly
yeah.
the word. You know, so it's a similar thing. So who stands to benefit? If it's decriminalised, then you protect these young women who go out there and risk their lives naturally to go out there and, you know, and do their work. At the same time, you don't want to allow sort of like an immoral, you know, if you want to call it that, act to take place that will compromise the regulations and rules of the country. So it's the same thing. It's who comes first? Is it people's lives and that you protect, and how much are you willing to spend to protect those lives? Or do you just say, look, it's a problem that needs to be run as an investigation and to get to the root of the problem and then trying to raise it? And that is the difficult one, because if these guys continue to benefit, how are you going to regulate them?
All right. Interesting analogy, by the way. Nicholas Mabena is the chairperson of the Zimbabwean community in South Africa. Nicholas, thanks so much. Our business editor suggesting that, you know, there are various ways that, or rather debates that we should be having. One of those that might benefit the workers or the illegal miners and still impact negatively on the economy is decriminalizing the activity. But just the living circumstances of your members, what is it that they go through, and why is it that they continue in this particular operation?
Well, the reason why they continue in this operation is simple. These are people that are unemployed, who are looking for opportunities. They came to South Africa, no opportunities. They embarked on this mining activity. It's something that is also happening in Zimbabwe, where particularly in Matabeleland South, where people embark on this illegal mining. It is becoming a norm in Africa, particularly in Southern Africa, that black people who have been driven out of the mainstream economy, they then go back to these unused mines, unprotected mines, and begin to look for opportunities in terms of digging gold. So what in our view we think should happen is that if the government were to provide or regulate that mining, so that we avoid disasters like the disaster that we are currently in, because the mine where these miners are is not protected and so on. So it is a high risk. This is why people have been trapped inside.
All right, Charmaine, just from the Chamber of Mines, is there a room to or rather the debate around a subdivision or subgenre within this sector of having an informal mining regulation to deal with this matter?
Absolutely. Illegal mining is not just about artisanal mining, just as a matter of interest. But yes, it is about making sure that it's regulated, that there are some standards put in place. The Chamber is not opposed to artisanal mining, but it certainly feels that there needs to be some kind of regulation in place to ensure, in the first instance, the safety and health of people who go underground.
Yeah, but we know with legislation and policy is going to take, it's quite a laborious, cumbersome exercise while lives are being lost. And we, as Charmaine was saying, sympathetic to their plight of having to feed their families. It's not necessarily for personal enrichment. So what can be done in the short term, Clive?
In the short term, what we need to do is to make sure that we protect the people and their lives. And so I'd like to see some more security at the mines to make sure that it doesn't continue, because it's really, really devastating. You know, you might get 4,000, 3,000 rands odd, but the time you die, in unforeseen circumstances, then that means your family will be lost to have anything in any case. So the risk, if you do the risk calculation, it's just not worth it, to be honest with you. And the dangers of the chemicals that Saniki was talking about that are involved in making sure that it's processed, those are lifetime scarring measures, and so that those people will not be able to have normal lives. So the question is, can government then penetrate and take a hard stance a little bit, maybe, to fortify the security that is available at these dumps, these oil mine dumps, and to make sure that they educate people? One of the most important things is to educate people. But it's very hard when you've got 70% being migrants. So how do you then strike the balance? You know, if it's illegal migrants, it's very difficult. Maybe if it's legal migrants, then you can be able to have a channel of educating them about the job scene and how it works. We can talk to labor. But when it's people who came here in any case illegally, it becomes very, very hard to legislate.
Nicholas, just your response in the fact that it's not recognized labor, it's illegal migrant being in the country, and illegally so, that you cannot take advantage of the laws or opportunities legitimately because of the status of these workers. What are you doing as an organization just to help your members further via education so that they can also enjoy the benefits of this country?
Well, on our side, we were not aware that quite a number of our people are involved in this activity because 3 years ago, there was this in Roadport where people were trapped in the mine and with this disaster, people lost their lives. And we thought things have normalized, people will not go back, unaware that not only Zimbabweans, because what we discovered in this trapped mine is that you have Zimbabweans, you have people from Mozambique, you have South Africans, you have people from Lesotho and so on that are actively involved in this thing. This is why we believe that it must be regulated, but it raises challenges for migrants, because the migrants who are not documented, how then do they get regulated in terms of participating in these mining activities? But you also would understand that particularly for the people in Matabeleland in Zimbabwe, because their fathers worked in the mines in the 70s where apartheid regime was recruiting cheap labor in Southern Africa. So people will know that my grandfather once worked in the mines, therefore I'm also going to go and work in the mines. When they get here, they are not really then employed in the normal mines, in the formal mining sector. They then do this is Amazama. This is what is now happening. So what we ought to do ourselves as an organization is intensify our educational programs to say, firstly, if a person is in South Africa, must be regulated in terms of their legal status in South Africa. Secondly, we need then to cooperate with the mining sector to say, these people are already participating in these illegal activities. How do we regulate them without discriminating on them? Because
Nicholas, I hear you. Thanks so much. We're just short of time. Zaniki, do you think we've created enough appetite for people to go the long route, the road less traveled, if you will, to study the value chain within the mining economy, as opposed to having to resort to such dangerous activities?
I don't think we've done enough now, because what we are seeing now is the result of the efforts that we previously did. So that's why these illegal miners are continue doing what they're doing, because of the appetite. There's a market for that, and there's buyers buying the product, and life is normal to them.
Yeah, okay, Saniki is a geologist speaking to us on the phone, and of course on the line, Charmaine Russell, Chamber of Mines spokesperson. Nicholas Mabena is the chairperson of the Zimbabwean community in South Africa, and our newly appointed business editor for ANN7, Clive Ramatibela Smith. Congratulations on the post.
Are you going to pinch me?
Well done. All right, we'll be back after this.